Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of our podcast, Is Breakfast Included? Thank you for stopping by. Today, Bernie and I sit down with Anna Ross, a powerhouse singer who's been performing backing vocals with Duran for nearly 20 years. Anna shares her fascinating journey, from growing up in Newcastle and her early days in the music industry to landing iconic gigs with artists like Lisa Stansfield and Duran. Along the way, she gives us an inside look at her creative projects, life on tour, and what it takes to thrive as a professional vocalist in the music industry. It's a super fun and inspiring conversation, so let's check it out.
Tell everyone who you are.
Okay, so I'm Anna Ross, and I am a singer, and I've been doing backing vocals with Duran since 2005. And that's who I am as far as my singing career goes.
Okay.
And I live in the UK. I live in London, London-based.
Yeah. Where did you grow up in the UK?
So I was brought up in Newcastle. I've been in London for several decades now. But I was born in London, and then I was brought up in Newcastle, then moved to Newcastle when I was a baby. So brought up, I don't know if you're familiar with the north of England, but it's Newcastle upon Tyne. It's a great city. Don't really get back there that often, but it's I'm proud to have been from there. Yeah, I can remember coming down to London for the first time and thinking it was really overwhelming. And I'm kind of used to it now, but it's a smaller town, a smaller city.
Yeah.
Do you come from a musical family?
My mum, on my mum's side, my mum was really a brilliant pianist. She didn't do it as a profession, but I grew up with her playing classical music. She did all her grades when she was a child, and so I just would hear her music and hear her playing. I was really lucky to be able to just absorb that, and it was always so beautiful. She had a really sensitive touch to the piano, and so from an early age I grew up just really not overthinking that, just really enjoying it, and I guess through that she always encouraged me to. She could hear that I was musical. I mean, she would say that I would sing things as a toddler before I was speaking. I don't know if she just said that to make me feel better, to make me feel good about my career choice. But she did. She spotted from me from an early age that I was musical, and that I have musicality in my family as well. I don't know if you're aware, but this is my adoptive mother. So and on my birth, I'm in touch with my birth family as well, and on my birth family, they're all musical as well. So there was a lot of music from her side, and also from my birth side too. So it was always there, and I was always singing from an early age. I wasn't the first to volunteer myself as a singer. I think some performers can. As if you hear it, it's not a given that you get different types of performers, but you get those that are just like, hello. I'm not saying that I was really shy, but I wasn't as kind of out there, an extrovert as some young performers and some performers, but I did just always appreciate music. And so for that reason, I always used to get involved in music in school. And then I did an O-level in music. And then I got involved as a singer, getting jobs when I left school pretty much straight away.
What were some of the first albums or artists that you listened to when you were growing up?
Well, I can remember I always loved melody, so I always really appreciated harmony, which is no surprise, and I guess that's what I get to do for a living. And I can remember there were other, like, I hung out with a friend of mine and she was really into punk, and I mean, now in retrospect, when I think about punk, I love loved the fact that it was such a rebellious, of course, by nature. And I like the artistry with a lot of people like Susie and the Banshees, and just trying to think who else she was into. There's a band called X-Ray Specs around, and then you had people like these are all the punky stuff, of course. I mean, I even caught a bit the Sex Pistols. That's who she was into, and the Clash, and that's who all the cool kids were into. And so I kind of be into that. I was interested in it, but really, what would motivate me was just hearing melodies. And so I would kind of keep some of the stuff that was less cool to myself, but I would absolutely love it. And so I'm just trying to think of the first. And then one of the first artists that I got into who was really introspective was a woman called Joan Armatrading. I used to listen to her and kind of my early, I don't know if it was the first album I got. She's still is. She's a brilliant singer-songwriter, and she works with acoustic. She's a guitarist, and I used to play her album a lot. And then I loved the Eurythmics. I loved Annie Lennox. And then as I got more into the singing, I was introduced to, well, of course, Aretha Franklin. I'd started getting exposed to quite a lot of, through other musicians that I met as a late teen, young adult, Shaka Khan. And they very quickly became kind of root foundation singers that I was just mesmerized by. So much heart and soul and spirit and technique, but not in a way that you would notice. It seemed so effortless. So I would say in terms of influential, all of it has been influential to me as a musician, as I've been progressing through my career and doing my thing and working with other artists.
Yeah.
Cool.
I picture you when you were listening to the punk and the denim jacket and
No, as I said, it was some of my friends. I had some of my cool friends were into the punk. I mean, I appreciated it, but I wasn't a punk. Having said that, I did do the Grace Jones things. Of course, she was another artist that was fantastic. I remember her and they're quite different to someone like Joan Armatrading, but both very independent women, strong women doing their own thing. And in that way, I found them both really wonderful. And I did have a Grace Jones haircut when I was in my late, so all shaved, and then you know how she had this, and then she had the square, that shape. And I used to, I loved. Was it? I'm just trying to think. It was an album she did with Sly and Robbie, but there's a song on it called "The Apple Stretching and Yawning," and I can't remember that might be what the album's called, but that was another album I used to listen to. You know how did you have kind of albums that were on that you just used to play on repeat? That was one after I'd been out for a night out, that's what I used to stick on often, that one, and just go around it, finish, and then I put it on again.
Yeah. We all
Those
have those front to back albums, don't we?
Yeah.
What was your first professional gig?
So when I left school around 16, and I went to a performance art like college, but I very quickly just joined bands and didn't really continue with the course. I kind of got halfway through it and then I just got too busy. So I was working with a few bands in and around Newcastle. So I worked with a band called, I think my very first was with a band called Dutch. And then I worked with a band called Seafood Jive, and they were that was really good fun. It was just kind of a kind of jazz, but it was, as you can hear by the name, it didn't take itself too seriously, and it was a collective. It was a lot of people in the band, and it was very much their attitude, which was to have there would be loads of people on stage, and it was just to have fun and have a good time. And then the first band that I kind of was in that got signed was a band called the V Corporation, and that was just me and the writer, and who was a bass player, and that was the band that I got signed with, and I think was probably influential in terms of getting me to London and it was a good band. It didn't work out, but it was a good band to have on my CV because people could see that I'd been signed and I'd been invested in. So when I was trying to then go on to get work as a musician in London, having not been from London, people would look at what I'd done and they'd see, okay, well, quite an early age, she was signed and she's kind of in the industry. And I think people took note of that when I was trying to network and get out and about as a young session musician in the industry.
Yeah. Coming from Newcastle, I've been there, when we tour through there, I've been coming from Newcastle to London. What was it like? Were you like intimidated? Like by
well, I don't know. I don't know that I was in. I think because I'd been signed in Newcastle. If anything, it was the other way round. I think. Well, no. I mean, as a young adult, I was overwhelmed because it was from the small city to the big city, so that was a bit overwhelming for me. But it was also really exciting. I mean, it's always really exciting if you move to somewhere, it's all kind of going on, and so that was all great. From a career perspective, I think if anything, I've been sheltered being signed, having a record deal. So I hadn't really grasped what it is to be in the industry. Well, I suppose I had a little bit because I was a working singer before I was signed. But really, I was faced with the knowledge that I'd been signed. So I felt like I was worthy of being invested in and of getting work. But the reality of getting work was very different. So I had that kind of I had that experience, but when it came to it, I had that kind of emotional experience and that reference. But the reality was that I had to really get out and about and make contacts. And I think it was because of having had that foundation. So I don't know if it wouldn't have been pride exactly, but there was a confidence because I'd been signed. There was a confidence that I had that I kind of, I don't want to say entitlement because that just sounds awful, but there was a certain thing because the reality was that it wasn't very easy. And so I did actually realize quite soon on that, oh, hang on a minute, there's lots of people trying to do this and they're all really good. Yeah. So what I found made the difference was that there was a bit of tenacity and confidence because the fact that I had come from having been signed and also a few contacts. Because when I was signed, I made a few contacts. So I kept in touch with some of those people in the industry when I came out of my record deals. And I got a bit of work and a bit of work and did a bit of networking through some of those people. And then a lot of it was then networking, was just getting out and meeting different people and being persistent to keep in touch with people. I don't know if it's the same with the job that you do or how it was for you, Bernie, when I know that I'm not interviewing you.
No. It's I don't think it's there's some similarities. Like it's like you said, it's not an entitlement, but it's like, hey, these bands have trusted me to work for them. Like I shouldn't have to, I mean, you always have to prove yourself, but it does give you a bit of confidence. Like, well, I can do these. I'm on an arena level, so yeah, I can do a club tour. No matter, you have to be quite brazen. I felt at that time I had to be quite brazen, and I can remember, but I managed through persistence. I got involved with. I don't think they exist so much in London these days. There's still fixers, so you have to kind of network your way into that scenario. But when I was in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, there were agents, there were session musician agents that you could get in touch with. They had people on their books, but if you were persistent and professional keen to get on and keen to work, then if you just kind of stuck with them and kept in touch with them regularly before you got I remember I was asked, they just said, well, you used to call every week. and then I dropped by and I was just made myself, I didn't even know I was doing it. For me, it was just that I was keen to get the work. So I didn't know that I don't think I was being a pain in the backside, but I think I was just, I didn't, and also it's not like I was the most confident person, but I was keen to get on. So I was persistent. And then I got my first audition with, for
Well, my first ever session was for Duran. It was a video, and it was the only work I got all year.
Oh, wow.
I got a one job. So I was like on what do you call it? I don't know if it exists anymore, but it was a self-employment allowance if you were young, if you're trying to be freelance, have your own business, but you got an allowance from the government for a year. But it wasn't very much money. So, but that's what was keeping me going while I was, partly what was keeping me going while I was trying to get the work.
Yeah.
And also because I had to be transparent, also I was able to stay at my relative's place when I first moved down. So that was very lucky. So I've considered myself very lucky in that respect. But anyway, but there was me thinking, oh, yes, of course they found me. My first gig that I did an audition was for Lisa Stansfield. And I thought, oh, yes, I've been recognized. And and it was brilliant. And then when we got the gig and we were on tour, I was with the other girl that got it at the time. And the MD told us, he said, oh, well, it was your height. I said, what do you mean it was our height? He said, well, you're both the same height. That's why you got the gig. I was like, we both were like really, well, we thought it was funny. I mean, he was just being honest. He wasn't mincing his words, but I thought, oh, okay. So it wasn't our star quality or our specialness or our incredible voices. It was just that we were both the same height. And we could sing, I mean, it won't have just been that because we sang good harmonies, but that's what it was according to him. So that was quite a good right sizing for us. But it was a great tour. It was a fantastic tour.
Yeah. So was that your first touring gig, Lisa Stansfield?
Yeah. So I pretty much I was very lucky. I pretty much went from doing the Duran I Don't Want Your Love video, which was the sole work, all the work that I got in the first year. Which was fantastic, but it was just one job. I was thinking, how come people haven't recognized my worth yet? And then I went for this audition, and because of my height, I'm hoping it wasn't just because of my height, but anyway, we both got this gig, myself and the other singer, and it was a new band for her. And that was and she was doing a world tour. So I went straight. Yeah. So that was amazing.
Wow.
And did that for 3 world tours. It was so much fun. It was a long time ago now, but it was her and her husband, and from a young age they just did all the writing together, and they were a really good laugh. They really wanted to have a good time. They were extremely musical, those two, and we just had a lot of fun. I mean, you'll remember what it's like touring in your 20s, Bernie, and just kind of. It was just, I don't know. Well, of course, you were doing so much. The crew never stopped working. So we were, so maybe it's a different experience for you. But we had a great time.
That's great. That's great. So you did this Duran thing. Did you remind them once you came back? How did you get the Duran gig?
So after I did the Lisa thing, well, not just after that they did that, but I was doing a lot of sessions through the agency, and then also through networking, and then it starts to take on a life of its own after a while. Once you've done a few gigs, you'll get asked to do things, and so I used to do a lot of demos for a guy called Jerry DeVoe. He used to introduce himself as Lenny Kravitz's cousin. Hi, I'm Lenny Kravitz's cousin. He just laughed. He was also kind of taking the mickey out of himself, I guess. But and he's now Sir Jerry DeVoe, because I used to work with him and another writer called Charlie Mole, and I used to do demos for Jerry DeVoe. They're both songwriters basically, and so I used to do loads of lead vocal demos. And I think again, I mean, he liked my voice, but I think it was because I was quick. So I had the right height and I was fast. And hopefully people like my voice enough as well. But he would never want to be in the studio for very long, Charlie would say. And so but he was great. He was a really good writer. He was fast. He worked fast. So I did a lot of work for him. And then I stopped working for a while. I stopped working in music for a while. And I just got a call out of the blue it's from Jerry. it's like I'd been doing some studying. Because I'd left school when I was like 16. I thought, oh, maybe I should like use my brain a bit more and do a little bit of studying. So I decided to do some studying, and so I wasn't really in the industry so much. I was keeping my toes in, but I got a call out of the blue from, I don't know where I'm looking, by the way. Does it look like I'm kind of looking off into
no,
the...
No, you're fine.
I don't know where it's no, I always say this at some point through
You're looking right at us.
Okay, all right, I'm close enough. So I got a call just from Jerry, and he said, and he was a friend of Simon's, they know each other. And he said that Simon was looking for somebody. And I was quite surprised, as I said, because I hadn't been in the industry. I hadn't been doing so much work. I'd been studying. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll go for an audition. And I just went round to Simon's house, and I had done a lot of things. I hadn't looked at my CV for a little while, but I had done a lot of sessions over the times of over several years. And so I took my CV, and then we went through the songs in his house. What songs did we go through? We went through Come Undone. I think we went through, had he done Nice yet? I love that song, Nice. I mean, I like some of their kind of lighter songs as well. They're so musical, that band, Duran. So I was just enjoying that. And I can remember I left thinking, well, I don't think I sang. He said, have you got a song you'd like to sing? And I said, I haven't. This is how prepared it was a bit of a surprise. That's right. In true Jerry DeVoe style, it was, can you go and do an audition? Like he used to say to me, Anna, I need you in like an hour. This was for doing demos. I'm so grateful to him, because without him, I wouldn't have. But I had done a lot of, these things can happen like that. I had done a lot of demos for him in the past. But anyway, so he said, yeah, well, he needs you to go around tomorrow afternoon. So whatever you're doing, can you just change it and go around there? So I went around there and I auditioned, and I left the audition thinking, well, that was nice. I got to meet Simon.
Yeah.
I got to go around there. And why did I not prepare a song when he asked me for it? It's like a basic thing. You're a singer, Anna. Why did you not? So I wasn't expecting to hear any more. But I was so kind of irritated with myself that I hadn't even got a song together. Even though we've done lots of singing, we went through the harmonies and we've done quite a bit of singing together. And then I think it was like a couple of days later, I got a call. I think I got a call from Simon just saying, yeah, well, I think we found I think his words were, I think we found our vocalist. And at that point I was still thinking, well, yeah, I'm not surprised, because I should have been more prepared. And you're just phoning as a courtesy to tell me. Yeah. And then he said, oh yeah, and it's you. I was like, tried not to be too surprised by the answer. Oh, thank you. But I was really, I was so excited. I was so excited to get that job, because it's such a good, fun band to work with. Even though 20 years later, I didn't know that at the time that I would be with them for 20 years. But it's such a fun gig to do. So
it is.
That's why I'm still here.
Yeah. I tell a lot of people that everyone that's been there since I've been there is still there, Exception.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's because I've met, of course, the people that you are working with. I mean, you have local crew as well, don't you, Bernie? But there's some core people there, and it's a really nice crowd, isn't it? It's a really nice group of people.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember this. My very first gig with Duran, I was filling in for the regular bass tech, was in Texas. You guys came to Texas. It was snowing really bad. Do you remember this? You came and did a show in Texas. It was snowing really bad, and it was for VH1. And you were the second person I met. They walked John in and over to stage right, and they introduced me to him. And then he said, "Anna, come here." And then he introduced me to you. That was it. You're the second person I met on the crew, followed by Simon Williscroft. But and I really didn't meet the rest of the band until middle of the tour. Like, then I started opening up and saying hi to Nick and Roger and Simon. But I really didn't meet them. But you and John were the first people I met. And here we are all these years
that's
later.
Cool. I
Still
know
there.
all these years later. Yeah, it's a good crowd. It's a good group, and you just kind of you're in it. Once you're in it, you just kind of get immersed in it, and then you meet the band as and when along the way. Don't you? I can remember the first time I met the band. I was just I'd been out with Jeffrey. We'd been going to get some clothes, and there was a downpour, and I went into rehearsals, and I was completely saturated, looking like a drowned rat. I'm like, oh God. That's the first time I met the rest of the band. I thought, oh well, here's my first impression. This is it.
Do you have a favorite memory in all of your 20 years, a favorite place you've been to, a big show that you've done that you can't believe you did, or anything that stands out?
Well, there's several shows that I can't believe that we did. I mean, the most recent, the one that we did in Times, wasn't a whole show, but we did Times Square on New Year's Eve. Recently, 2 years ago, I think, or whenever it was, either last, it wasn't, don't think it was not last New Year's Eve, but the one before, which was amazing. That was an incredible year. The Commonwealth Games, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it was all in the same year. And they're all favorites, really. It's difficult to pluck one out. Doing the Olympics in Hyde Park, that was fantastic. That was amazing. It was just such an amazing. I mean, since then we've done Hyde Park again. The Hyde Park gigs. There's always something special when you do the UK. I mean, it's just a sentimental thing. I'm from here. So I would say those gigs have always got like an extra thing, because they also remind me of my association with the band growing up. Because even though I wasn't a fan, I wasn't like an out and out fan, I still remember the hits as they were being released and really enjoying them for the same reason that I said that I just the melodies were so noticeable, and also the lyrics are all they're really accessible but also really original. I really like that about the band as well. They have their own style, very much so. So those gigs, I would say. I'm just trying to think of gigs in the. Can you remember any? Oh, we did NASA. That was. I mean, they will go for it. They do some unusual gigs. Yeah. That was an amazing gig as well. So there's not one exactly, but there's a handful that have a real special quality about them.
Yeah, I really liked our first show back after COVID, which was on the rooftop at the hotel.
Oh, of course, yeah. Again,
that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. And
what was anything? The Astor. It was the Astor. But I would have done anything at that point.
I know. Just kind of being outside and with other people.
Yeah.
That was a win already.
Totally.
But it was, I mean, it really, that was a special gig. It was great to do that outside.
Yeah.
And be on the rooftop at that hotel. That was wonderful. That's a special one. Yeah, absolutely, as you said. And there'll be others as well.
Yeah, yeah. And like you, though, I think they're all good, you know. Do you ever... Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you ever get nervous anymore?
Yeah, I do. I do get nervous. I don't get... Yeah, I wouldn't say I get kind of... I don't know if I ever did get so nervous. There's something... different when you're I get to really enjoy the music. I do really enjoy the music at the gigs, and working as a backing vocalist, as a musician, as a session musician, you don't have I was chatting to some friends the other night about that. There's not the responsibility of the whole thing, because it's not your band, so you get the perks in that way. You get to enjoy the music. Yes, it is your job. But you don't have the response. It's not like you've got to carry the whole show. You're part of the show, and you can enjoy it. So I don't get... the first time I got really nervous was when I was with Lisa Stansfield, because it was the first time I'd ever played such a massive crowd. It was Rock in Rio Festival, and it was 100,000 people, and she was supporting George Michael. And I mean, it was just... we just be like, if I had like straight hair to be like that, we would just like deer in headlights. We're just like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? I mean, I was thinking that. I mean, of course, we got into it, but it's just a totally understandable reaction, I think, when you're not used to being in front of that many people. And it was I mean, it's such a big difference between doing 5 and even 10,000 and then doing 100,000. But I think, that was a baptism of fire. I mean, but you really soon realize that, regardless of the size, that really it doesn't change. You can only do your performance, whether it's like 2 people or 10,000 or 100,000 people. Logically, you can only do your performance and do it as well as you can and hope that the audience enjoys it. So the factors involved, for me anyway, I'm sure the factors for you, Bernie, are quite different when it's a different size. There's all the technical side that can change, and
I think
for the crew, maybe not for you.
When it's a smaller gig, that's when it really changes. But the big gigs are the big gigs. It's just a show, and you prepare for it as best you can, to where you guys just come on and do your show, and you know that everything's going to work. But it's the smaller gigs that really throw the wrench in anything, because
it's the other way around.
Huh?
It's the other way around. It's the smaller shows.
For me, because you lose certain things. You can't bring this. You can't, because there's no room for it.
Of course.
So you're like having to improvise. But after all these years of doing it, hey, I mean, we fit 3 semis into the Apollo, I think. Right?
Oh,
do you remember that? We brought we brought the screens, we brought everything. we were in the middle of an arena tour, and we did the Apollo. And
I'm just trying to think. Wait, when you Hammersmith? Oh, the event.
The Apollo here in Harlem. Do you remember that?
Right, I'm thinking because we have an event.
The Hammersmith.
I'm just trying to remember that show. We've done a few small ones.
Yeah. So, do you still enjoy touring?
I do enjoy touring, and as they carry on and they do more, they really know how to tour well. They don't kind of. We were doing maybe not on this, certainly not on this tour, but in previous tours, we like doing 4 shows and then like a day off. Sometimes, not that common, but the schedule seems to be really just nicely balanced. Again, for us, for us as musicians and for them as the band, I think they've toured for so many years, and they really know how to tour in a way that they can give the best shows and they can look after themselves as well. And so that then spills out into how, as musicians, the session musicians, how that we are on the tour as well. And so, so I love it. I mean, the tour that we just did, the one over Christmas in New York, it was great. It was just a little tour, 10 days, but it was fantastic. I love being in Philadelphia. That was the one, I think that was the one before, where we stayed in the same, we were in the same place as well. And then we hubbed out, and you get to walk, like I walked around a lot of Philadelphia. I just really enjoyed walking a lot and just seeing the city in that way. And then also sometimes on like days off, I'll do some of the art museums and go to local gigs as well. And that's all stuff that you get to do because I get to do because I'm touring. Otherwise, it would happen if I went on holiday, but probably not that even in the same way. I probably wouldn't make a point of trying to get to local gigs if I can, or there's just I do love it.
Fun.
Do you have any pre-show rituals before you go on stage? Anything that
I have done. I mean, I try and do a bit of a warm-up, and so like a bit of a vocal warm-up, and I suppose, if anything, I just try and take it like a bit on the actual show day. You don't really notice unless something messes with it. I just try and keep things quite low key on a show day. Like I won't, if there's something that it might be kind of cool to go see something, I wouldn't do that on a show day. So you just keep your energy, even though you don't think of it as a big deal, but I tend to just keep my energy for the show that day. So so if that's about as close to a ritual, apart from doing a warm up, that I would say is I reserve my energy. I do it automatically without realizing, but it's only, as I said, if something messes with that I realize that can kind of rattle my cage a little bit, because I don't want to get like depleted. And so like I will try and do a bit of a warm up, like a physical warm up as well, but not too much, just like something to like a stretch and just a little bit of a workout, but hard, really not very much, like 20 minutes max or something. And yeah, that's it really.
Along with Duran recently in the last few years, you're in a band called Uncovered with Dom Brown, who plays guitar in Duran.
Uncovered the electric rock experience.
Yeah.
The electric rock. So
get it right.
Whose idea was that, and how did you get involved with it?
Well, that's Dom's idea. It's Dom's band. Mm-hmm. And we hang out on tour, and we've been friends for a long time. And he said he was putting this band together, and it was over lockdown actually. And he said, "Oh, come and do some vocals. It'd be great to do some vocals." And over lockdown, it was just really good fun. It was everyone probably felt the same over lockdown. It was great to have this going on, and I think it was the time where we were even careful about how far apart we were when we did a few live streams, and they're really good songs, good music. It doesn't matter what the genre is, and he's such a good. There's really good musicians in that band, and so I feel so privileged to be working alongside such great musicians. I really enjoy, as well as other, of course, with Duran as well. And it's very live. It's different in that sense, in that so is Duran, but it's a different thing. It's rock, and it's paying tribute to the classic rock, and it means that there's lots of the classic rock, and then he'll do like his solos and stuff like that. So, and then I do a few lead vocals in that as well. So it kind of came about through lockdown, and Dom wanted to do something else. But yeah, that's his gig, and I enjoy doing the backing vocals in that as well, and singing a few songs. So I'm singing, I sing "We Are the Champions." He persuaded me to sing a couple of AC/DC songs. I'm like, really? Because it just seems so different for me, but they're again really good fun to sing. So I'm not doing Highway to Hell. I'm doing Back in Black, and then what's the other one? Oh, I do Tina Turner, Nutbush as well. So which is fantastic. Again, another icon of my Tina Turner. And we're playing at the end of this month, and it's a great thing to do. Very different. It's just very different to Duran, but really good fun. And it's a natural thing to do because I've known him for so long. So it feels quite natural in that sense. Kind of working with you, playing with your mates. It's like it just feels like that. That's how it feels. And there's quite a few people that come regularly now to the gigs, and I know that. Everyone's excited about the idea of doing more gigs when Duran aren't working, so it works well. It works well when there's time to do it when we're not touring with Duran.
Is there a lot less pressure for you, like since it's just kind of playing with your friends? You're performing, but it's good time. It's just that's how
I feel with Duran, to be honest with you.
Really,
backing vocals, yeah. Whereas with the band, actually, I'm doing more lead. So if anything, it's different. It's just different. I would say I don't feel any different. I think relating to what I just said before about, it's not so much the size of the gig. It's more really about just wanting to do your best, give your best, and for the audience to enjoy it. So it's the same premise. It's a different size gig, but it's the same attitude really that I would bring to that than I would bring to Duran as well.
Cool. Are you working on anything other than Uncovered and Duran at the time?
Well, I was doing vocal coaching, and I am doing vocal coaching. Had a little bit of break before Christmas, but I love that. I don't do loads of it deliberately, just because it's just how many hours there are in the day. But I really enjoy vocal coaching. So I have a few students that I'm going to be teaching again this year, and I'm also I also began. Well, yeah, I'm really excited about developing the independent creators. You're in that group, right? And you did the interview for that group, which is coaching independent artists and independent creatives. So it doesn't really matter what creative outlet, what is your creative thing. So we have singers, we have artists, we have photographers, we have writers, different musicians, and people doing all sorts of different creative things in the group. And I mean, I got quite busy with Duran last year, so again, I'm looking forward to putting time and energy into that again. And so it's coaching. It's a form of life coaching and business coaching. It's like a hybrid of that I offer. But the group itself is a standalone group, so it's not like I offer that in the group. But it's also a group where people get to chat, and I interview people. I haven't done it for a while, but I'm hoping to do more of that this year. And that's the independent creators. So shout out to my group.
Where can people find you?
Group. So I could send you a link. So it's called The Independent Creators. It's on Facebook. It's a Facebook group, and the link is also in my. If you go to my link tree in Instagram and then you press on link tree, it's also one of the links in there. But you'll find it. It's just called The Independent Creators, and then it says you can see my face on that, so you can find it. So if you're a creative and you want to hang out with other creatives, and also I had a little break, but I offer advice and I do coach as well. So that's something I'm looking to develop more in this coming year.
Nice.
Well, Anna, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. You also have an Instagram, correct?
I do, yeah. Anna Ross 369, or I think it's just A Ross 369, or Anna Ross 369. I could give you that link as well.
I'll link to everything for you.
We do appreciate you doing this. Like you said,
it was lovely to chat.
You said earlier, like the Duran group is just a close knit of people, and it is. And you're one of the people that I'm always, no matter where we go in the world, like sometimes you end up in some place you've never been, and then as soon as you guys walk in, you're like, oh, I'm home. Like, this is my family. So it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's always a pleasure seeing you. I love working with you.
Likewise. I'm so glad that we got to actually do an interview. I can't believe
Thank you
it's
so
taken
much.
so long since the one that you did.
Thank you.
And I absolutely feel the same. There's no surprise that we've stayed with this group with Duran for so long. It's a really great group of people, and I regard you absolutely in that camp. So absolute pleasure to do this interview finally. Yeah. Thanks for your patience.
No, thank you for yours. As you know, our podcast, it's called Is Breakfast Included? And if we were having breakfast, which I'm sure we have, what would you have?
For breakfast? Well, yeah, I mean, what I would have when I'm feeling healthy would be avocado toast, which I love. But if there's chocolate in the minibar when I'm away, then it could easily be chocolate from the minibar, which is also not uncommon.
Delicious. Perfect.
Well, Anna, it was good talking to you. And again, thank you for taking the time. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. That was really fun. It was such a pleasure chatting with Anna about her life, Duran, and her vocal coaching career. If you want to keep up with Anna, be sure to follow her journey on Instagram at AnnaRoss369. That's at ANNAROSS 369. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. We really appreciate it. You can also go to isbreakfast.com to find all of our links. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Definitely subscribe to that YouTube. Or check out our store and grab an Is Breakfast Included t-shirt to represent. Join us next week for more great conversations, because around here, breakfast is always included.